International Speaker of the Universe, a man of many good mornings, JMan. Good morning, good morning, good morning, and good afternoon, depending where you're watching in the United States. This is Jeremiah's JMan Monroe. JMan Speaks, bringing you another JMan's Ed Talks. Today, we're talking about protecting your assets. Okay, we have a special, very special guest. We're going to bring her on here in just a moment. Make sure this works. All right, fantastic. Ann-Margaret Carrozza, thank you so much for being with us today. I have a bio prepared for you. Do you want me to read that? Or do you want to just introduce yourself? Okay. So Ann-Margaret Carrozza, thank you for being with us today. JMan's Ed Talks, protecting your assets. Hopefully we have your sound working okay.
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me. I am an asset protection attorney. I am
sound on my end. How did this happen again? Let's try that one more time. Unmute, mute. Can you hear me okay? You can hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, no. So if you're watching this, just post in the comments. If you can hear Ann-Margaret okay, let me know. And if that's the case, then I will go and try to fix what I'm working on right now. Just post in the comments. Can you hear me, and can you hear
Hello?
Ann?
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Without a problem. Make sure we got our sound working. Okay. I'm not seeing anything in the comments yet. What do we have here? Sorry, folks. In the world of live video, this can happen from time to time. Come back over here. I can hear both of you. Okay, so it's a new problem. And just take it away. Start with your intro. I'm going to bring you up solo, and then I'll fix my sound issues on my side while you do your intro and talk a little bit about yourself.
So I am still an asset protection attorney. I served for 14 years as a New York State legislator, and I am the on-air legal expert to Dr. Phil, and I do a number of other legal segments. So what we're going to talk a little bit about today is protecting assets, which I really believe this is the next level in personal finance, because what does it matter whether I am earning a 3, 4, or 5% return on my portfolio if I have a 43% chance of being financially devastated in a divorce, or if I have a 60% chance of losing assets to a long-term illness, not to mention garden variety liabilities. One of the upshots of the pandemic is that we're all spending a lot more time at home, and who can turn on daytime TV without seeing an ad for, a personal injury law firm? Or we're starting to see expanded notions of liability. Did someone intentionally inflict emotional distress on you? So I think when the economy is a little unpredictable, we definitely see garden variety liabilities increase. So I think more than ever before, we all need to think about what can we do to protect assets. So I think to get married today without a prenup is just, nutsy cuckoo. It is absolutely crazy. 95% of us have fire insurance, yet only 5% of us, less than that, will have a fire. Whereas 98% of us don't have a prenup, but 43% of us will get divorced. So I think there's a big misconception out there that a prenup is just there to protect the wealthy person from being financially devastated. But if it's properly done, a good prenuptial agreement will give security and protections for both parties. No matter how much money I have, I don't want to worry about losing it if the relationship doesn't work out. If I am the party with fewer assets, I think it's all the more important that I take steps, and we as a couple take steps to make sure in the event that the relationship doesn't work out for any reason, I'm not kicked to the curb. So I think what a good relationship agreement does, whether that is a prenuptial agreement prior to getting married, a post-nuptial agreement during a marriage, or a cohabitation agreement. We have more cohabiting couples right now than at any other time during a marriage or in U.S. history. Agreement. We have more cohabiting couples. I'm listening to the audio, so I think there's a little bit of a delay. So, we all know folks who were supposed to have gotten married during the course of the past 9 months, and they've had to postpone the wedding into 2021 or indefinitely. So these are people who otherwise would be married who are living together. On the other side of the spectrum, we have people who were only kind of early on in their dating relationship when the pandemic struck. And it was kind of like now or never with the prospect of a lockdown and being lonely for all of those months. A lot of newly dating couples just moved in together. So we have a whole range of folks who are just living together. So let's talk for a minute about what kind of protections cohabiting couples may think about. So if we are not married, chances are more likely than not that the home or condo or the apartment lease is going to be in the name of just one of the parties. So it's very, very important to spell out what kind of protections are we going to give the other party in the event that the relationship doesn't work out, because we all know that couples fight from time to time, and that's a normal thing. But what we want to avoid is, if I'm living in a house owned by my partner, every time there's an argument, am I going to worry about being homeless, that he's simply going to kick me out? So we want to put some protections in place in writing. Why does it have to be in writing? We're dealing with two lovely people, and of course, they're going to treat each other with kindness and respect on the other end. Well, hopefully that's the case. But we put things in writing because expectations and recollections differ, right? That's why we put our New Year's resolutions in writing. We put something in writing if we want to accurately remember it, and if we want to periodically refer to it. So I'm going to ask my partner that in the event the relationship doesn't work out, that I have, let's say, 8 weeks to get my things out of there and make other arrangements. Depending upon the situation, we may also want to have a monetary settlement. If I moved, if I lost money because we moved in together, I may want to be made whole on the other end. What if the cohabitation works out beautifully and we're blissfully happy, and one person gets sick or one person dies without legal protections in place? I'm going to be at the mercy of my partner's family, because if he doesn't do a will, or better yet, a trust, then his estate will have to go to court, where his parents or brothers and sisters are going to be his heirs at law. At the very least, I would want him to do a will or do a trust that says Ann-Margaret has, 6 months to continue living in there, or depending upon the relationship, he may give me those assets and I may give him assets within the estate plan. So that's very, very important. At the very least, we want to make sure we have something in writing whereby I am compensated for any monies that I am putting into what is at this point a joint household. So that's the cohabitation piece. We also want to make sure that we have good advance directives for each other. Will I be able to make healthcare decisions during a hospitalization for my partner? If we're not married, then we're going to have to put these things in writing for each other. What if we are married? Again, 98% of married folks do not have a prenuptial agreement. So we may consider doing a post-nuptial agreement. Often a post-nuptial agreement is done during a time of relationship catastrophe. If my husband has cheated on me for the 3rd time and I'm just kind of sticking out the marriage until the kids leave the house to go to college, then I may want to have the property distribution set down in writing so I don't have to worry what's going to happen in a future divorce. I also recommend to even happily married folks, I have a post-nuptial agreement with my husband. Why? Because our trusts say that everything goes to each other and then the balance goes to the kids down the road. Well, upon my death, if I'm the first one to die, everything's going to fall into his lap. And then if he gets married, which I firmly believe he would, then this new person is going to try and take all of the assets from him right away. So we have a post-nuptial agreement that says the last guy or gal standing promises to enter into a prenuptial agreement prior to any future marriage. So I know that JMan was going to interject with some questions or steer where we're going. I think we're having technical.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I hear you fine.
Okay, so now it's a video issue, but at least you're what matters. We can see you, we can hear you, and now I can hear you as well. So in talking about the prenuptial, postnuptial, as it applies to real estate, can you help us to, okay, we work with clients from when they buy their first home and then they start acquiring, okay, let's get that first rental property. And now they're buying, some more real estate from there. What kind of advice would you give to us to give to our clients or give to our clients and bypass us?
You know what? I think it is primitive these days to own real estate in our own names. This goes back to we have a record level of legal liability notions out there. And I think that we want to have protective structures to own our real estate. Now, I grew up in a very financially chaotic situation, and it wasn't uncommon for us to have the electricity cut or the phone going out, for example. So when I finally achieved some level of success and was able to buy a home, I was very proud to see my name on that deed, and it was just super terrific. But I think with some education and with some life knowledge, we need to get away from that. I think it's really cuckoo to own real estate in our own names. We're a sitting duck. If my cleaning woman falls down a flight of stairs and the property is owned by me, she can own that house. What about homeowners insurance? Well, if I'm paying her off the books, forget about it, because that's an illegal employment situation. So insurance companies are brilliant, and they get out of paying most claims because it's somewhere in that 200-page contract that none of us read. So we want to think in terms of LLCs, limited liability companies, limited liability partnerships, S corporations. But for the primary residence in most areas of the state, the thing we want to think about having is a trust. Because if I put my primary residence into an LLC, in most areas of the country, I will lose my primary homeowner property tax exemptions. So we want the primary residence to be in a trust. Should that be a revocable trust or an irrevocable trust? So the revocable trust, also known as a living trust, is very popular psychologically. I can put my assets in and I can take my assets out without anyone's okay or permission. But think about it. If I can get my hot little hands on the assets whenever I want, so can my creditors. So we want to think in terms of a slightly stronger trust, but we never, if you take nothing away from today, please remember the following. We never need a purely irrevocable trust, because a purely irrevocable trust can't be changed and can't be modified if circumstances change later in life. So we want something that is flexible enough for me to be able to make changes. If there's a death in the family, if a child who was originally named as a beneficiary has a problem, a substance abuse issue, a gambling problem, a psychiatric diagnosis, I want to be able to make changes to protect that beneficiary. And we would not be able to if the trust is purely irrevocable. So I want people to remember that if you engage in trust planning, you want to retain a set of handcuff keys, because you never know when you're going to want to back out of that parking spot. And if things are properly drafted, you'll be able to react to changing circumstances down the road.
So primary residence has the trust. So then if we start acquiring more rental properties,
I'm sorry, your volume cut out.
if we start acquiring more rental properties, then as we live our lives, right? We get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, hopefully 10 properties. Then would you suggest then each property has its own LLC after your owner occupied properties in the trust? And then
Okay, so it depends on the individual circumstances. A good rule of thumb is that I can have my primary residence and I can have a vacation property in that same trust. If I'm not regularly renting out the vacation property and I'm a little bit less concerned about third-party liability, sure, I can have the vacation property, the primary residence in that same family trust. And it doesn't matter if the properties are in different states. A properly drafted trust is going to be valid in all 50 states. Once we start getting into investment properties, and I talk about this in my book, I'm a big proponent of buying properties as an investment that you can control, as opposed to the market, which who knows what's going on there and who knows what's propping it up right now. I certainly don't, but real estate is terrific. And I think once we start acquiring more properties, we want to have those in their individual LLCs. I like an LLC because it's more flexible than any of the other devices. And then as years go on, we can take some of the membership units of each LLC and add those membership units into this family trust that we've created. And within the operating agreement of the LLC, we can require 100% member agreement before the asset can be alienated. So that provides optimal asset protection, because now the trustee of the trust, which happens to own 5 membership units of the LLC, would have to be in agreement before the LLC asset can be voluntarily alienated or involuntarily alienated by virtue of a lawsuit.
Wow. Okay. So folks, if you're listening to this and all of this is really making your head spin, what we want to recommend is that you give Ann a call. And we're going to put all of her contact information in the comments. It's in the description as well, because it makes sense. You shouldn't go it alone when you're talking about all of your most valuable assets, right? Rely on an expert.
But Jane, if I can just jump in for one more piece of it, the big question is, can I do this on my own? Can I get the Susie Orman kit? And I'm a big Susie fan. And actually, she helped me learn to start saving money a million years ago. I used to just spend money like a drunken sailor. And I actually had nicer clothes 20 years ago when I had no savings in the bank. I had much nicer stuff than I do now, but now I sleep better at night and I don't dread going to the mailbox and getting all of the credit card bills from Bloomingdale's. But all of that being said, I think like anything in life, it's a balance. It's not a totally DIY project. On the other hand, you don't need a lawyer to do everything. My website is myelderlawadottorney.com. I do have free forms there. No matter what state you're in, you can do your own healthcare proxy. I think an attorney who charges for a healthcare proxy should be ashamed of themselves. That was designed for people to be able to do it on their own. So if you just start with that healthcare proxy, I think, when we take action, we feel a little bit more powerful. And this asset protection is a piece of our overall financial lives. And if we start to take some action and move forward, we definitely feel like a little Zen calmness, and we're not so freaked out and nervous about all of this.
Yeah, so it's a great point. So many great points. When we're talking about, because it's myelderlawattorney.com, maybe I don't consider myself to be ready yet because I'm so young and nothing can happen and I'm bulletproof. And what's your advice for folks like that? I mean, anything can happen at any time.
You know what? I think it's a moving, evolving situation. If I'm young and healthy, I can still be sued, right? So I need asset protection. If I have minor children and I don't want my parents and my husband's parents in court fighting over custody in the event of a skiing accident, let's say, then I need to get some estate planning in place to create smoothness and stability for my loved ones. That's what this is all about. If we can anticipate any complexity between our loved ones, then we need to deal with it within a good estate plan.
Absolutely. Especially this, with blended families and remarriages and all of that, it can really get quite complex.
100%.
So let's talk about real estate with realtors, real estate agents, and the liabilities that we face, property management, showing houses. I can remember my first couple of years in the business, I was showing a house. My client stepped off the front porch and broke her ankle in like 6 places. Her husband told her to tough it out. So that might have been a divorce soon after, but told her to tough it out and let's go see houses after that. But she ended up like breaking it, having to go into surgery. She didn't sue me, but at the moment I'm like newer in the, like, what do I do? I was worried, like we have so much liability and errors and omissions doesn't cover everything. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I will never forget a case that I heard about 15 years ago. And it was a vacant house for sale in upstate New York with very clear signs, keep out, no trespassing. It could not have been more clear. Some teenagers with a 12-pack of beer found their way into the house, and there was construction going on, and it was missing a flight of stairs into the basement.
Oh my gosh.
One of them fell, broke their back, broke other bones, and there was a lawsuit against the owner of the property as well as the realtor. They ended up all settling out of court, but I think it's very important that notions of liability are continuing to increase out there. Should you have let me know that you had reason to believe there was, an oil tank buried in the backyard, and I have a child, and that child grows up and has problems. Was it because of that? Was it not because of that? So the first step and the most important step, yes, we should have insurance, but I think even more important is that we protect our assets. And we do that through structures that we are a part of creating so that they're effective. If I do an LLC and put that book on this bookshelf and don't follow the formalities, a plaintiff's attorney is going to be in that LLC and bust it up in 5 minutes. So there are very simple things that we can and should be doing. And whatever attorney someone works with, it has to be an ongoing relationship where you can call, you can email, you can say this, that, or the other thing happened, because we need to be able to allow the plan to evolve as we're acquiring more properties. Don't be a penny wise and a pound foolish. I bought my third multifamily apartment building and I put it into the same LLC to try and save a few bucks. Right. Now, if someone gets hurt and they manage to bust into one, then they get everything that's in there.
Wow. Okay. So what would be your the protecting assets side, but as somebody in real estate, you own your own business, you work for a broker, Should we be operating under an LLC ourselves? Should it be a corporation? Like, what's your advice there? Because so many people get into real estate and they haven't owned previous businesses. They don't understand business structure. What would be your recommendation there?
That is going to be so case specific, and it's going to depend on whether you're out there on your own or you part of a group. So step number one, get the insurance. Step number two, secure your own assets. Step number three, so I was in politics, as I mentioned earlier, for 14 years, and someone gave me some very good advice early on, and that was, speak as if you are always being secretly recorded, because sometimes you will be. And, we all want to make that sale. And, we may have a prospective buyer who asks us something and we're on the fence about how far to go in terms of making a representation. Just keep that in the back of your mind. Speak as if you're always being recorded, because that is a growing area of liability, making representations to someone.
Okay. And I want to kind of, I might have missed this because I didn't have audio there for about 5 to 7 minutes. But in regards to couples purchasing real estate together, because I feel like it's probably twice the number than it used to be, twice as many unmarried couples as the married couples purchasing their first home anyways, where the mortgage may be in the wife's name, but the husband's giving the down payment and closing costs. What would be the best way going into that? They're not married. There's plans, depending on who you ask, which one of them you ask, that they're going to be married someday soon, to protect that initial asset. They're making that purchase. What would you recommend? And again, I'm sorry if I missed this, but
yeah, we did cover it a little bit, but it definitely bears reinforcement. All of the cohabiting couples today, some of them would be married if they weren't forced to push back that wedding date because of the pandemic.
oh, that's true.
Others kind of prematurely moved in together, at the prospect that we're going to be locked down and we don't want to be alone in the apartment for 8 months. No one knew how long it was going to last.
Right.
But a lot of people kind of early in the dating moved in together so they'd, have a pal to watch TV with. Very, very important that we do a cohabitation agreement and we spell out who gets what. Upon a breakup, I get my down payment back. You will agree to take over the mortgage. And we definitely have to spell things out, because we don't only have the risk of breaking up, which is huge. One of us could die, so we need to deal with who's responsible for what. How are we going to pay the mortgage off? And am I going to be made whole with what was my down payment? So we have to have it in writing. We could be dealing with the nicest people in the universe, but recollections and expectations differ. And, the overarching thing that we need to remember is that we break up with a very different person than the one we fell in love with. So, better to protect ourselves on the front end.
Yeah, because when they're buying that house, they're like, "Oh, I love you. I love you." When nothing will happen, we don't have to worry about that. And I think us as looking out for their best interest is always like, worst case scenario, if something were to happen, let's have this cohabitation agreement. Let's put that together. But we have a follow-up question here. To add to that, does it fully protect the other spouse if they go on the title work together as joint tenants with right of survivorship?
Yeah, so that is going to prevent the surviving partner from having to probate an estate upon the death of the first one. For older couples, that's not going to protect you, though, if instead of dying, your partner has a long-term illness and they go into a rehab or a nursing home, which in my area of New York State is over $15,000 a month. And then when we run out of money in the bank, they can and will put a lien on the property. So joint tenants with right of survivorship is better than nothing, but it's not as good as a trust, because the trust, think of it in terms of creating a force field around the property to protect it not only from probate, from capital gains, and from healthcare liabilities in time to come.
Okay, fantastic. So I wanted to keep it to 30 minutes because I want to be respectful of your time.
Thank you.
You know, and I do thank you again, Ann. Do you prefer to be called Ann or Ann-Margaret?
People always end up calling me Ann.
Okay. All right, Ann. So, you know, thank you so much for being on with us on
Pleasure.
our Ed Talks today. And again, we're going to post your website and all of your contact information in the comments below, as well as in the description. She is an expert, folks. Don't try to do this on your own. She does have forms available for you, but if any of this, and you're in real estate, or you're just a homeowner who's looking to buy more property, or an investor, whatever the case may be, you know, do your research, protect your assets from anything happening in the future. So again, and thank you so much for being a part of today.
Thanks for having me.
And for everybody who's watching this, thanks for tuning in. This is Jeremiah's JMan Monero with JMan Speaks.